But now we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, everybody. It's with a great pleasure that I am welcoming today Lee and Monika, who've graciously agreed to come and share some of their precious time with us today. So welcome, Lee and Monika. Thank you for being here. Now, you're known globally. Yeah, I feel as though you're not pan-American, you're pan-global. Yeah, everything about you has touched the four corners of this globe many times. And what I love about your work is it's constantly evolving. Yeah, sometimes you see somebody and they sort of stay similar-ish for a long time. I listen to you and it's like, wow, this is new, this is different. How do you manage to constantly keep raising that frequency? Could you perhaps share with our viewers what is that you manage to do, both of you together, so beautifully?
I would like my take on it is I am like so many people. I don't like change, and
It's true. It
it's,
really
and
is
you
true.
already have done my chart, so if we just like sits there, and this always comes from somewhere else. It's a push for me. So I will just say I'm guilty of not wanting to do what you have just complimented me for doing
And
with Monica.
I'm the opposite. I love change. I want to always change the decor in my house.
Yeah.
I want to always never have the same outfit on. I always want to invite change and new things. And that was part of why I loved traveling, because of the new experiences, the new people.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting that we have ended up in this partnership
So
to support each other.
you might say she's the engine on the train that that's always looking for new ways, and then that is enhanced by the new information that
Yes.
starts coming in through my work.
Yeah.
And between the two of those things, that train is often then pushed into these new areas. If it were not for Monica, I think I would be sameish, or that word that you used. And
Yeah.
so that is how it works. And but you're right. As I look back on my work and I measure it in really probably decades, I've had three major changes, and I've been doing this for 3 decades. So it's um, that's the way it works.
Well,
Now,
I also want to address when you mentioned the Kryon work has touched all corners of the globe. It's because the message is for all corners of the globe from Kryon. And I came into Lee's career in channeling kind of later on. And then I just did a fast track on reading everything and catching up on everything Kryon had ever said about anything. And I've seen that evolution in the channels. So there was a time when Kryon would give a 45-minute channeled message. If you go to the original audios, they're very long. Now you'll find them to be about maybe 12 minutes long. And part of the reason is that we can get so much information in such a burst amount of time. We don't need to necessarily be in that 45-minute channel anymore. That's just one of the many things where we have evolved. The other thing I have seen in Lee's work is that Kryon was very clear early on to my partner, that's what he calls Lee. He, she actually. Kryon is not masculine or feminine. It's an energy. It's a group entourage. So Kryon was very clear early on that don't put your work onto mainstream media. And so for a long time, Lee always had this pushback of being on social media, YouTube, Facebook, because when those messages were delivered in the 90s
Yes.
and early 2000, I don't think we were ready collectively to hear that. And we have now evolved. This is part of the shift. So let's turn the page. 2012 is that midpoint of the shift, which you know through your astrology, the precession of the equinoxes, and I'm sure your viewers are very familiar with that. But then we get into 2020 and COVID, and this is now the next shift where the answers people are finding we are so lost with our direction, and they are ready to hear a different message. And that is part of the evolution. And I'm sure you feel in your work you've had evolution that is now even going beyond where you could have imagined. Would that be the case?
That would be the case, Monika. Yes, you're absolutely right. But I love how you have really clearly shown the stages of this evolution. And you're right, 2020, we're now having to really up our game to something
Yes.
much more profound and something that is accessible now. I love how you've tied it in with Facebook and all of these media, because more souls are ready for the kind of high grade 12-minute messages that are
Yes.
coming through. Yeah. Would you agree with that as well, Lee?
Totally. In fact, it's so clear to me. I told you that this happened. This changes in decade groups. I started in '89. In '99, I got a very firm message. I'll tell you if you want to later. But then 2019, if you take a look at that, the groups of 10 years, she came in 10 years ago.
Wow.
And then we started all of this broadcasting in 2020, which was one. It's just right after 2019. So there it is. It's in 10-year blocks for me. That's probably an astrology thing. There's probably a timeline there that you could pick up.
It's
But it's
activating parts
fascinating
of
to me.
your chart. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yes, right. But these changes, I'll just tell you, I kick and scream, and I'm quite sure it's part of my human design and part of my chart, and you could probably pick it up. I never have liked change. It seems like you just when you get to figure it out, it moves.
Yes, yes, I know that fixed energy with your Aquarius and your Scorpio.
Hmm.
You don't like
Hmm.
it. It's like, oh, I've just got comfortable. I'm
Yeah,
comfortable now, and now you want to move me.
yeah,
Now, you know,
yeah.
come on.
So as we talk about ourselves, I want to tell anybody who's listening that you might be stubborn just as much as I am, but if you feel anything is pushing you and you may even think it's a funny direction, I want you to sit back and use your guidance and your intuition. It's probably correct. And if I hadn't obeyed those things that pushed me, I don't think I would be here talking to you now. So for the listeners, be aware that this is the new paradigm, and that is change.
Mm. And are you finding that you're adapting to change just a little more easily, Lee?
I am.
Yes.
I'm a
Are
lot
you?
better at this. Yeah,
Yes.
much better, and
Yes.
that's also part of the new paradigm. I've changed, and it's I think I'm much more relaxed with things that I see coming, even though I've never done them before. I used to a program like this, for instance. I only started broadcast in 2020, so I was never on the air, as you want to say, or streaming or anything. And so to think I'm going to go on a program, I have no idea what I'm going to say, and I don't know what answers are going to become, that used to actually frighten me because I wasn't prepared and I didn't want to look like a fool and any of those things. And now I welcome it. And I'd say it's something that has just happened over time that says it's going to be fine because you'll be given the things to say and your interviewers are all kind people. You had to get used to that as well.
Well, I mean, it's great to see, because I'm not sure that you are quite as resistant as you may think you are. I don't know. I think that that's changing. Anyway, you
It is.
mentioned in a recent one of your recordings that this thing about turning Kryon on and off,
Hmm.
and that in the last few years that's changed. Could you perhaps talk a little
Mhm.
about that?
That was, I think, one of the biggest changes. I, as a channeler, started channeling Cryon in 1989. And
Yeah.
people, very linear thinkers, would think that somehow I got converted to the New Age and metaphysics and all, and I threw away everything that I knew before. That's what we think about in conversion, and especially in religious things. That didn't happen at all. The idea of God, if you want to, the creative source, it got bigger for me. So everything I had learned in church about love and compassion and kindness, it's still there. Um, and it just got bigger. And then Cryon came in and gave me all the things. Well, it evolves. My work evolves. And the Lee Carroll that you see had to evolve with it. And that evolution was also about how much energy can you contain, and how do you work with it. So it would be like this. I had Cryon visit me, and Cryon lives in me now. But there was a time when I only got messages in the shower. Now go figure this out. I would go into the shower and get messages and then come out again, and if it wasn't clear, I'd go in again. There were days when I got real clean. And I received very clearly, stop playing church. And I said to Cryon, that's almost insulting, but what do you mean? And what the message I got, and I don't get voices, I get intuitive messages. All of us have intuition, and if you're a mom and you get a signal because your infant's in the other room and you need to go, and you find, oh yes, the infant needed me, was that a message that came through the voice? It wasn't. It was an intuitive flash. A message was given and you acted. That's what I get as well. That's channeling. And what Cryon said to me, he said, you're going to a place where people gather and you're channeling. They go home, you put me on the shelf, and you pull me out again when it's time to write a book or whatever. And he was right. And I said, what's next? And he said, the next step, a meld. And that is, I want to be with you all the time. And that will mean that you will constantly get message, but more than that, you will become more light. You will be lighter. You will start living the things that you're talking about.
Yes.
That
Yes.
wasn't a step I realized until that happened, and that was a major change. So that is the meld that happened that you asked me about.
Yeah, yeah. And also, just to let you know, it shows in your face, in your eyes, in the brightness of you. There is a real brightness that's come through, that is different, I would say, from a decade ago. Would you agree, Monika?
I would absolutely
Yeah.
agree 100%. We often will sit, and even when we started Lee would lecture in the seminars, there would be moments during his lecture, since this meld Crimes
Yes.
and Lee spoke about,
Mm.
that he would be giving a lecture and in would come Cryon. I would know exactly the moment when Cryon was coming through and delivering the information. And with the new work that we've been doing, a Healing Wednesday, it's a
Yes.
weekly program, and it's completely different. In fact, Cryon calls it a meditation, not even a channel. So this is that next part of evolution. And the meditation, Cryon is taking you to not just sit there and hear the energies of the message. This is something you participate in, and you participate in it to go in and touch your soul. And this is something Cryon said is new for the planet, with this concept of you getting in touch with your soul. That's where your answers are. That's where your solutions are. It's wonderful to hear the messages from Cryon, but it's a completely different experience to sit in the energy of your soul. and be shown things and given things and experience things. And this is where the new evolution is. And Lee, I've never asked you actually, do you feel you are sitting more in your soul as a result of having given these Circle of 12 meditations now for over 100 episodes?
I definitely feel that the meld has gotten closer.
Mm.
I can feel it, and thank you very much in what you said. I feel it in my personality.
It's
I'm
true.
more relaxed. I'm more open. I'm more grateful. Um,
Mm.
I see things differently as they happen around me. Things that would have bothered me or worried me within my own just space of living. The things happen, things break at home, things whatever, and there are some things that you would react to, and I'm not having those reactions anymore. So I'm just observing more.
Wow. Well, that's a huge change, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, that's a
yes, it is.
Yeah.
huge
Yeah,
shift in consciousness. Wow. That's
Yes.
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's what we're being asked to do,
Me too.
is to
Yeah.
just to show up,
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
show up more authentically.
Yes.
And the collective consciousness, we are ready for that.
Yes.
And the reason why Lee is so much more comfortable now with all of this is that people are coming across Kryon in the most extraordinary ways, and they're hearing the message instead of what Lee, if he would have done this in the 90s, having people judge back and ridicule and
Yes.
make fun of. And that's part of, Lee has stewarded the Kryon work with such integrity
Oh,
and such grace of delivering the message. And one of the evolutions that I've witnessed is that Lee's now comfortable in having his name with Kryon. And you know from his chart, Bracha, that he is more of the hermit, and there would be times he would just want to finish on stage channeling and step behind the curtain and never have anyone associate the energy of Kryon with Lee as the man, because the message is so much more important than it being, oh, well, Lee Carroll is the one that delivered the message. And he was always so protective about, no, we don't want people to link on to Lee Carroll. We want people to connect with Kryon and the message. So even this now is more evidence of that evolution, where Lee has become very comfortable with being associated with Kryon and Lee, and
yeah.
it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
very kind. Um, in the beginning, it was just raw fear. I wanted. This is what Kryon was talking about. I wanted Kryon to be separate than me,
Yeah.
and Kryon said, "You can't do that.
Oh,
You've got to
yeah.
live me,"
Yeah.
and that's what
Wow.
happened.
Wow. And also the generosity of spirit that you've had all these years. I mean, really, the amount of information that you have shared just from your heart, Lee. I mean, you have far and wide. People have not had to pay largely. It's been given freely and with such an open heart. I really feel that's something very special about the energy that you bring and you have brought all these
We walk
years.
between two worlds, and I
Mm.
think that you know this, how it is with anybody who is giving spiritual information. You have the option of simply going to work and giving this on now in social media and then going to work, or you can try to earn a living
Yeah.
giving this information. And that's what we do. So we have to have a studio, we have to have staff, we have to have people you pay and whatever. So there has to be something that pays the bills.
That's
But
right.
at the same time, we're giving a message that should be for everybody. So what we do is that on a site, one of my Kryon sites, for years, I have every channeling that Kryon ever has done is there for free, and that continues. But if you wish to
Amazing.
have a package of teaching
Yeah.
from me, or program, that then is something that we charge for, and not that much. So that's how we do it. But even then, there's criticism that it all ought to be free because people are used to a paradigm where they go to church for free. So that still is there, and
Yeah,
I understand that. And we
yeah,
try to explain it as best we can, and some understand it, some don't.
yeah.
But I always tell people, well, what you see here with what we do here comes at a cost in our culture, and we have to pay it somehow.
That's right. That's right. But what I feel, I mean, all that information on that site that all those recordings, I mean, it's been a godsend for so many people. You've touched so many lives in a really
Thank you.
positive way. Really, you have. And it's a joy to see you in this meld because I think this helps many people. You become human, you become accessible, and you also create an accessibility within an ordinary person who isn't channeling necessarily, but it enables people to see, maybe I can get intuitive messages. Maybe I can get my own information. And
People
you're,
can, but yeah, I feel very ordinary. I still do. And you're right. Anybody can do this
yeah,
because our intuition is in touch with the other side of the veil. It just is. This is what it is. And
yeah,
anybody, they don't have to channel an entity. They can channel their own sacredness. And the result is what you see. And that is you become a person that is far more relaxed. You don't worry as much. You learn how to handle fear, and pretty soon you're going to live longer, and you find out you're healthier on a day by
yes,
day basis. It all comes with the package, and that
yes,
package is learning to love.
exactly. And I love what Monika shared about the new evolution, in that people are not passively sitting there anymore, just, give it to us. No,
Yeah.
you are activating within the soul so that people can blossom for themselves, and they're not, glomping onto you and waiting for you.
Mhm.
You're giving them the greatest gift, which is to be able to find
Mhm.
themselves. So, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's certainly the idea, and that is certainly what we teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
The biggest thing we find in this planet right now in all the cultures is that we have grown up in a very linear way. We expect certain things in a row, certain things in boxes, and whatever. It's hard to then expand that. And when we say think more sacredly, when you were a kid and you learned that God could listen to a million prayers at once, a billion prayers at once, and you say, well, how does that work? And nobody can explain it. I say, well, that's just God, and you're not. Well, we are. We are a piece and a part that is sacred in our souls, and so there is a bit of a multidimensionality for us as well. We can do multitasking when it comes to certain kinds of things. Here's one. How many of you are comfortable with receiving information that you need only at the last minute? And the answer would be nobody, because we are linear. We want to plan ahead. We want to be prepared. So we ask Spirit, what should I do about this upcoming meeting or this upcoming thing what I do? And you get no answers. And people get very frustrated. God is not listening to me, or worse, I've done something wrong. And everybody just goes to the worst case scenario, not understanding a new paradigm. And the new paradigm is this, that we have free choice. We're going to be given the answers. Things move around as we pray for or imagine, for instance, or project the best possible outcome of something that is unexpected or fearful for us. And we race up to that point where we need to know, and bam, answers are given, things happen, and you go away from it and go, I got a miracle. And the answer is you didn't get a miracle, you got what you asked for. And you might have even created it. And the fact that it happened at the last minute is the new paradigm.
Wow.
And I love I love, Lee, how Kryon gives parables sometimes in the channels, beautiful parables, and there's often a character called Woe. Woe represents every man or woman. It can be a woe man or a woe woman. And there's the parable of the missing bridge. This is exactly what Lee was describing at the last minute. And so what's interesting in the evolution of how things have changed is the parable of the missing bridge, originally given, was that you were driving your car and you were going to a bridge that you knew had collapsed and had not been repaired, and yet your intuition is saying you need to go and get in the car and get on the road and go to the other side. And so here you are trusting intuition, and miraculously when you arrive, the missing bridge has been repaired and you go across. You got that at the very last minute. Then with the evolution, and when I had the memory of listening to Kryon give this parable again with the missing bridge, this time the road is changing and moving, and the missing bridge is changing and moving. And so now you are trying to think, well, which actual road that keeps changing are you going to be on in order to get the new bridge that keeps appearing and disappearing? A little like if people have watched the movie Harry Potter, when they start climbing up the stairs, all of a sudden the staircase pulls out, turns around and moves, and now you have to go in a complete different direction to where you were climbing. This is describing how the field that is filled with potentials works. And this is why Kryon keeps saying with synchronicity, there are many moving pieces and parts that have to line up. And when you get in touch with that place inside that's with your soul energy, you can just sit and relax knowing that something, this or something better, is going to arrive for you. But the key is to get in touch with that inner knowing, that inner voice. And you can't do that when you're in a place of fear, anxiety, worry, or panic. None of those things will actually deliver an outcome. And so we are also unique in how we get to that place of relaxation and surrender and peace. And so that's the invitation, is to find that for you. What is that little secret key that can have you relax and drop into peace? Because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Yes. And I would encourage everybody, if this has sparked your interest, which I imagine it will, do check out cryonmasters.com. Check out the Healing Wednesdays. They're really amazing sessions, times together, and it's always evolving. This is what I love about you too, is that you're always creating something that is dynamic, with moving bridges and moving roads, and there's so many moving parts, and we have to learn not to be so linear. Yeah, I mean, that's really what we are moving towards. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And this is, we can give you example after example of just everyday occurrences, things that we have to deal with on a regular basis at home with our families and our children and all, things that could go numbers of ways that we are concerned about, and as we should be, that seem to line up in a magic way when we start relaxing. And it's just, I'm going to tell you, creating your own reality sounds stupid to most people. They think they're here and you're lucky if you have things happen the right way. And we say there is no such thing as lucky. You set it up and you deliver it. And it's what you think about and how you feel that determines what's going to happen next.
Yeah. And I love what you're both saying. It's about getting into that peaceful, quiet space And we've been bombarded with anxious messages, panic things, it's like panic alarms going off. And we've got to turn all those off. They've just got to be turned off in order to get to, and that's why I love that you're calling them meditations now. Yes, meditations as well as messages.
Some of them are hardcore channelings.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
but both.
That's changed. Yeah.
That's changing, and that's wonderful too. Yes, we need all of it.
Yes.
And one thing will touch one person and the other will touch somebody else that couldn't be reached in that way.
Thank you for saying that, because there is such a realization that we're like food. If somebody said, "What's the best food? Give me the absolute truth," you could say you're crazy. I mean, there's so much of this, and everybody likes something else. What flavor ice cream is the one? And well, there isn't. It's the one that you like. And so what we have in our style and our spirituality and everything we teach may absolutely turn off people, but there's somebody else who would teach basically the same thing in another way that will work for them. They just need another personality to deliver it, or perhaps it has to be delivered from a scientist or somebody that they trust more than a New Age person. So there's something for everyone here, and this message is getting around. There's a basic message here. And the basic message is this is not your grandfather's world. Things are changing. And all you have to do is go outside to look and see that they're changing. And you can either fear them as being the end of the world, or you can look at them and say, this is what was predicted by the ancients. It's the beginning of a new world. So glass half empty, glass half full. But there's so much evidence of the latter, and that is we are entering a new time, a new stage, a new energy, and it means we have new tools as well to get around some of these things that shorten our life. Fear, anxiety, worry, all of that can be tempered and controlled, and you can even have a much happier life even when you're sitting in turmoil. So this is what we teach, and others are teaching the same in different ways.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. I mean, I feel as though we could talk for hours, but I recognize that your time is extremely precious and valuable. I want to direct people, everybody, please, if you're interested in more, go to cryonmasters.com. Everything is there. And just thank you, Lee. Thank you, Monika. It's been a delight and a pleasure.
Always a delight for us.
Always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Infinite love.
Thank you. Much love.